Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Patreon Q&A. If you asked a question and you would like to skip ahead, I've got that listed on the side or on the bottom or someplace where I put it. You can just click on your name, it'll take you right there. Otherwise, we're going to go through and ask questions asked of me by my patrons who are supporting our website. And also we'll do a little bit of news update and let you guys know where we are, where things are going, how stuff is looking. Now, like I've addressed in the past, we have put a can on Equestria Primates. Unfortunately, PetterUp has not had time to put stuff together for us, and that may mean that that his work on Equestria Primates might not pan out. I'm not sure exactly what his schedule looks like. I mean, I'm in touch with him, and we kind of keep up on stuff that we'd like to do, or so on and so forth. But PetterUp may. I mean, I don't know. I can't say anything definite at the moment. But what I can tell you, though, is what I've been going through. I have been learning to draw very diligently, working hard, been learning Flash, actually. And this next episode, episode 7, which will air the same day that I hope to get this online, we will have 12 frames per second animation on Mentally Advanced Series episode 7, -7. That's going to be the one where they meet Zecora. Is what that is. So we've got animation. We've actually got like a brief fight scene. It lasts for all of like 2 seconds, if you could call it a fight scene, if you're generous enough. Anyway, that's exciting. We've got some puppets built, and My Little Pony, it turns out, is actually very easy to put together with Flash puppets. It's a very like the puppets are very simple. Everything is all nice and smooth. The other thing I've been doing is because I still want to do Banana Republic, I've started working on puppets, Flash puppets for Banana Republic. So, with any luck, I will have those done, and I will start doing little shorts about Banana Republic. And maybe those will go from shorts to slightly longer things. It turns out that I was using Flash, able to get the last Mentally Advanced episode done way ahead of schedule. And because of that, if you are a patron, you probably saw this, I posted the Mentally Advanced series on Patreon way early, and so you guys were able to see it. You can share it with friends, so on and so forth. And yes, and that's all cool. And I'll continue to do that, so if you guys are supporting us, I'll just, as soon as the Mentally Advanced series is done, I will upload it and I will post it to Patreon. You guys get an early peek, and then I'll release on the 1st of every month, and otherwise, release other projects as I am able. Speaking of, people have asked me about Mech Warrior, when is that coming back? I am trying to get that done. I'm in a state of a little bit of writer's block. There's the episode is just weird, and maybe I'll bring up the quirks with the episode, but I just don't know what to do with it. And aside from that, though, I'm also spending a lot more work time on animation and art and stuff like that. So there's not as much time for the Let's Plays as there was, but I will get that done, and then once Mech Warrior is done, I will go back to Legacy of Kain, and we will just be doing 2 Let's Plays as consistently as possible. The Adventures with KB I'll try to do once every single week. What else is there? I downloaded Blender. In fact, I'm actually looking at Blender possibly as a source of like 3D backdrops. I can set up backgrounds and like houses and stuff like that with textures and everything like that. Take screenshots and just superimpose that. Could save me a bit of time in the long run. We'll see about that, though. I don't have a lot of understanding of Blender yet. I'm just now looking into it. Next episode, episode -8 of the Mentally Advanced series, will be 24 frames per second. This is the plan. I'm currently setting up for that to be 24 frames per second. We've got Paris sprites. They're animated out 24 frames per second. They've got little fluttery wings. What else? I sent out a request for other artists and things like that to help us out. We got back a number of responses. I responded to a handful of them because I sent out, I respond with like script ideas and say like, how would you like to do this script and this thing? And so I sent out a few things. Some of that looks like it's going to materialize into stuff. Some of that has dropped off the face of the earth, but that's kind of what I expected. Some of these are, I mean, it's sort of like auditions in a way. So like I said, we'll see. I'm not sure what I can promise yet. Because a couple people, like, for example, Phoberia is still helping us out with stuff, but she's had some recent trouble with weather and natural disasters and whatnot, so hopefully she'll be okay, but there have been some issues. And so things have come up, and it's, you know, I'm not sure what to report, but I am talking to people and working on getting more content out there. What we'll do with that is I will pay those guys a share of the Patreon money, whatever the average income is for each video, which right now is a little below, like $200, so it's not, like, huge for... You know, it's not a huge amount of money for a video, so we'll try to keep the videos short, you know, like a minute-long video, and then hopefully, you know, if you guys want to do that sort of thing. If we get artists that want to do that sort of thing, then, you know, we could do like a minute of video for about that much. I don't know. But hopefully we'll continue to go along, and we'll bring in more money, and I could, do bigger things, bigger and better things. Could be interesting. But that's all the updates, I suppose. That's where we're going. That's how things are progressing. So some mostly up. I mean, mostly good stuff. Not too many down things at the moment. But anyway, though, so let's go ahead and get on to questions. Our first one is from James White, who asks, "What is your diet like?" And my diet is actually kind of it's kind of boring as far as lunch and breakfast goes. Like in breakfast, I wake up and I have like a blueberry muffin cake sort of thing, or maybe like a granola bar, some really like boring, or maybe something sweet, I don't know. And then that's it for breakfast. And then for lunch, I have like a fruit cup and the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, very much like grade school lunch, not very exciting. And then for dinner, I have all kinds of different things. Like right now, I've been doing this stir fry thing with like pork, beans, and rice. And then like a bunch of things that I just kind of stir fry it all together. I make my own pizzas. I don't like to buy store-bought pizzas anymore. I think they're not as good for the price. So chicken, this and that. My diet for dinner is pretty good, but everything else at this point is pretty bland, very affordable food. I just kind of live on an affordable diet. So that's what my diet is like. Kazard, he says, please check out Poppy Opossum and tell me what you think. Poppy Opossum is a webcomic. I checked it out. It didn't hook me too much. I don't have a whole lot of time for reading, for like starting at the beginning and then catching up on like a webcomic. I used to be able to do that, but these days I can't. I noticed that Poppy Opossum wears a very form-fitting set of overalls for an opossum, for a possum, an opossum, for a possum, Poppy Opossum. Yes, but aside from that, one thing I will say about it is it opens up with kind of like a creation myth story, and there was a lot of exposition, and so I kind of didn't want to read that very much. So I didn't get a really good look at it. I kind of skimmed over it, looked through a couple pages, noticed that there was a weird blend of like old-timey tech and like future tech. Like they had a spacey holographic computer, and I don't know. So those are my thoughts. Like there wasn't a lot of time to get really into it, but I had a look at it anyway. Boris Rebo, he says, have you ever been compared to Ned Flanders? And no, I have not. I am not quite optimistic enough to be compared to Ned Flanders. Do you have any vices? And yeah, way back I used to drink all the time. I mean, like I was just a ridiculous. I would drink pretty much like at least a beer every day, it seems like. I don't know. I remember that There got to be a point to where one of my larger expenses was probably alcohol. But Ken's asked me to cut down on it, and so I kind of did. I didn't like just quit it all at once. I just sort of tapered off, and not cold turkey. I just drank less beer until I quit drinking, and so now I don't really drink so much. Probably have other vices, you could say, like maybe laziness, if you like. In a sense, I mean, like I always feel like I could be doing more with my day. I could be working harder, and so I don't know. That could be one. It's really hard to judge on whether or not that's a vice, though, because you always need downtime. You need like emotional downtime, but you never know when you have too much downtime. When is too much? How much is too much? I've ever played Company of Heroes, and I've never played Company of Heroes. I think you asked me what I felt about it, but I've never played Company of Heroes, so I don't have many thoughts about Company of Heroes. What school of economics do you ascribe to? Keynesian or Austrian school of economics? And I think that the thing about economics is that when you think about schools of economics, all they are is they're just models. They're not really like Keynesian economics is always right in every single market, in every single situation, and Austrian economics is always right in every single situation. This difference between the two is the Austrian economics is kind of more of your it's kind of a more supply side economics, where it assumes that like if you have all these different competing firms, and if you raise your prices, then people will buy less of your goods and you'll be outcompeted by your other firms. It kind of assumes that everything is absolutely competitive, and that is just simply not true. It gets in this weird thing where Austrian economics, that's kind of what the GOP, the Republicans, do right now, where they focus on cutting taxes for the rich and cutting taxes for businesses, because they're always saying that, like, well, if we cut taxes for the supply side, then the supply side will lower their prices. And this is the thing that you find, is when you raise prices, a lot of times companies, if they find that the market like if they feel that it's beneficial to them, they'll lower prices. But what they find is that these days in the U.S., there's so few actual competing large companies. They're kind of more like oligopolies than they are like competing businesses. So, you know, if you lower their taxes, they don't lower prices. They all just continue to charge the exact same thing. The only time they lower prices is when they're taking a loss to eradicate smaller businesses. So, yeah, Austrian economics is kind of based on an ideal system. But Keynesian economics, it's sort of the same way. Any sort of model will work. Keynesian economics focuses more on spending, on this idea that as long as you're keeping the money flowing, and as long as people, like if you give money to people, like if you get money into the system, then the money will be spent, and as long as the money is being spent, the economy will kind of revitalize. And what's funny about Keynesian economics in the States is that our style of Keynesian economics was just that they provided major subsidies to the rich, and they did a lot of the quantitative easing so that rich people could invest more money safely into things, and so on and so forth. And it really hasn't stimulated the economy. It doesn't seem like it's really doing much better than the austerity economics in Europe, because, you know, it just focuses on the top-down stuff, and it's like the middle class and the lower class are kind of the greater, like there's more of those people, and they don't really get anything from the top down. Whether you do Keynesian or Austrian economics, it doesn't matter if you just focus on the people at the top of the pyramid. So, you know, like both have their merits, but they're models, and so the models fly apart when you get into actual, like, practical questions. Do I post on 8chan? He also included, now that 4chan is killed, but do you post on 8chan? I don't really post on 8chan. The boards are much slower than on 4chan, and they're more specific, and of course people also make like a bunch of, like, you can make your own board, so sometimes people will just like make a board for a topic that already exists, and so you get like, it's highly fragmented. I don't think it's a perfect symbol. I don't think it's a perfect system. Some people kind of like it because you can, I don't know, make any board you want. I guess there's more freedom. You get to moderate as you please, as opposed to being moderated by Moot, who has historically been a terrible moderator. You know, I mean, on some boards, I suppose you wind up with better moderators, but you also have less people to moderate. So no, I don't really use 8chan. I mean, like, I've looked at it, but you could take it or leave it. Why do I wear the suit? If I take the suit off, will I die? It would be very painful. Now, I wear the suit because it's a suit, and I own it. I don't get a lot of opportunities to wear the suit anymore, so I wear it for the Q&A sessions. Why does Pinky sound like she does? Why does Pinky sound like she does? Because Pinky is very manic, and I thought that she should sound like one of the cultists from the Dawn of War series. You know, we captured it for chaos, and that's where the Pinky voice came from. Pinkie Pie. She is a cultist. Sorts. It's not a communist Russian dictator. She's just a cultist. Warp1092 asks, how do self-employed people do taxes? Well, funny you should ask. Self-employed people do taxes with a frowny face, because one of the things you find out is that when you're self-employed, normally the taxes are funny because there's also employer taxes, and so you have to pay a certain amount into Social Security and Medicaid. And you find out that this is just an overwhelming chunk of what your taxes is going into. I mean, like, if you make $20,000 in a year, you'll pay like $500 in income tax, and then like $3,000 or something like that into Social Security and Medicaid. Just a bunch of your taxes goes into that if you're on the lower level of poverty. Of course, what's funny is that once you get rich, they have a system, there's a cap, where you just quit paying into Social Security and Medicaid once you've paid enough, you know. So like if you're very wealthy and you're making tons of money, then they just quit asking you for money. This is what's funny about the US government and why we talk about people who are not paying any taxes on their billions and billions of dollars that you get into, because the tax codes are funny. But what you do, though, is because you have to pay the Medicare and the Medicaid and Social Security, you have to write a quarterly check out to the government and say, you know, here's your money. So every 4 months or so, I would sit down and I write out a check, and it's about a quarter of the taxes that I think I'm gonna owe for the year, pretty much. And so I just send him that money, and then at the end of the year, I report how many times. Like I said, I did this 4 times, and I paid you this much, and then they estimate my taxes based on, you know, what I sent in. That's where your refund comes from, though, is if you overpay, you know, stuff like that. You get, like, tax withholding and things like that. You don't notice these kinds of things when you're getting your paycheck directly from an employer because they just handle all that stuff. I mean, your employer is supposed to handle that, but when you're self-employed, you do it yourself. You get to see exactly how much of your money is being sent to the government for what's like I said, social security, which sadly a lot of people think might fall apart anyway, and so I may never benefit from it. I'll just be pouring like lots of money into this thing, and then social security will collapse. But that's it. I mean, in a nutshell, it's just like it's the same, but you just have to pay these quarterly taxes, and if you screw them up, then they charge you a penalty. There's rules for whether or not you've screwed up. If you're close enough, if you guessed close enough, or if you guessed. If you paid based on what your last tax return said that you would earn, then they leave you alone. I'm pretty sure is how it works, but I don't know. For the most part, I just do my best and I follow what certain tax calculators tell me to do, and then I send in that amount of money. I got another one from Samuel Albert Mell. Would you be up for trying online games of Battletech? And I would. I don't have a lot of time for that sort of thing, though. I'd have to sit down and learn the rules. This is for the tabletop game. There's an online version of Battletech, and I do like the Battletech stuff. So if I had an infinite amount of time in the day, I would be up for it. Games like that, though, they're always an investment. I mean, like, if you really want to get into that, it tends to be that you have to get in the competitive community, and truth be told, I already invest a lot of that time into Forged Alliance Forever. So, you know, so I don't have a whole lot of time to get into Battletech, but it does sound interesting. It's something that I would like to do, but I don't know if I will have time to do it. Michael Efforts, do you follow the 4chan Cup at all? And he also asks if I do, what team do I go for? I don't follow the 4chan Cup. It looks kind of amusing, but other than being able to name the characters and create ridiculous backstories for them, it's like soccer, but with virtual characters, and so I kind of, I don't really mind. Justin says, what is my favorite character from the Star Wars Extended Universe? I suppose that, does Kyle Katarn count? Excuse me. Yes, anyway, does Kyle Katarn count? Because he is a character who I'm familiar with. I played all the video games, the Dark Forces video games, and all that stuff, and I was a big fan of Kyle Katarn. I liked his story. But aside from that, I don't know a whole lot about the extended universe, except for some of the more silly things. Like, for example, the fact that Emperor Palpatine apparently cloned himself. Although this is something that I heard. I also read about there was like a planet of droids. There was like 2 planets of droids. And this was sort of a thing made for kids. So it's a very silly story. There's like junker droids, and then there's like highly advanced super droids. And the whole thing is very silly, but it's all in the extended universe. This is why I think that Disney declared that only some of this stuff was canon. But yes, I don't know. Kyle Katarn is the closest favorite I've got. Which had a longer impact on the world, World War I or World War II? And I would say that World War I, because World War I continues to have an impact on the world, and therefore it's had more time to have an impact on the world. Unless you mean like which had a larger impact. Maybe you said that and I wrote longer, but I'm pretty sure that you asked me which had a longer impact, and World War I definitely had a longer impact. It's been around for longer. Larger, I don't know. World War II is in people's more recent memories. I mean, of course, that led to the development of the atomic bomb, but who knows, maybe we would have done that otherwise anyway. Do I prefer crunchy or smooth peanut butter? And I actually like crunchy peanut butter. I like the texture. I'm one of those people. Why do I put monkeys in the things that I do? It's because I like monkeys as analogs for people. I like to think that people are basically just evolved monkeys. We're just rather clever chimps. And aside from that, we're really not that amazing. So monkeys kind of takes that silliness just to, its conclusion, and just like, okay, all these humans are monkeys now. And of course it allows me to do slightly dumber things and have the explanation be like, well, of course they're slightly dumber, they're monkeys. You get to be a little bit more hyperbolic when you use chimps and things like that. What's the most plausible faster than light travel method? And I have no idea what the most plausible faster than light travel method is. He proposed like wormholes and stuff like that. But there's currently no real theory on how we could actually do that that's come across as mathematically plausible. So right now I think there's no technology. As far as just being realistic, I'm afraid this is kind of like I mean, like, in terms of sci-fi, I guess you could say that warping the fabric of space-time is just as plausible as using wormholes or anything else. I mean, whatever you like for your story, but the reality is that there's not any plausible faster than light travel yet at the moment. There's nothing that mathematically makes any sense. If you could pass a silly law, what would it be? Oh, and I thought about this after you asked me, but now I can't remember what it was. One that would be nice is if every time, maybe like this would be good, where every time, like if a politician took money from a PAC, like they would have to wear a hat, and it would have to have, like, in letters large enough to be read while they're doing the interviews, which PACs they took money from, and like how much money they took, and the names of the people who donated to the PACs, the names of the big corporations that donated to the PACs. And then that way I think it would be amusing, because it would counterbalance, see, this maybe wouldn't solve the corruption with money thing, but it would counterbalance it, because the more corrupt, like the more money that the politician took in, the bigger their hat would be. And so the sillier they would look up there debating. They would have this enormous hat with all these names on it and all these, like, all these money values and everything like that. And so you just go out there and you see, like, oh, who's got the biggest hat? He's probably going to win with he's got all the advertising. But just for the debates, they've got to come out in a hat that says who gave them the money, how much money did they get, and who donated that money to the PAC. And there you go. I think that would be a wonderful law. This would be a great one for our politicians. And then, like I say, I'm pretty sure that people would just tune it out, but the bright side would be that they would have to wear giant, funny hats. Let's see. What is your dream car? A functioning car is a great dream car, I think. I'm not a very exciting car dreamer. What about your favorite piece of sci-fi? What's your favorite sci-fi weapon? Gosh, I don't know. We're gonna come up with something creative, but like... laser swords are fun. Lightsabers are always fun. I know that's a very safe answer, but I mean, honestly, there's a reason why that got so popular. It's kind of a neat idea, this is a laser stick. It's really not like swords. They really are just kind of like a brightly colored stick. But they could chop through anything. I mean, think of all the things that you could chop through. That's pretty great. Like, you wouldn't even, I mean, like, what if you could make, like, tiny lightsabers and you could put them into, like, bullets and you could shoot them at people? Would you think that would be more, maybe that would be dumber. See, I don't know anything about ballistics technology. I could be proposing a very dumb thing. But yes, laser swords, I guess lasers in general are pretty cool. Lasers. Sci-fi weapon, good. Yes, lasers are good. Yeah, it's very boring today. Views on libertarians. What are my views on libertarians? I understand where libertarians are coming from. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Our government's really strange because for the most part, it's just very right-leaning. And the core idea behind libertarianism is basically it's like liberalism, but they don't call it liberalism because in the States we just view liberals as being on the blue team, and the blue team is bad, evil, terrible, and so they don't want to do it. But the libertarians, kind of the idea is that they want smaller government and less government influence and so on and so forth. And in theory, I understand why this appeals to certain groups. I mean, especially if you live out in like the Midwest, where communities are smaller, having less government involvement makes things easier to work with because, I mean, you've got a fewer number of people. You don't have to work as hard to get stuff done. Of course, it doesn't work for the cities because there's way too many people. They need, more organization. They need more infrastructure. If any of the infrastructure breaks down or you're not providing enough, then things get bad real quick. So, I mean, it's a kind of a competing philosophy. It's not probably a very good federal philosophy, I think. It's a great philosophy for local government, but not a very good federal one. Like, you can't apply it broadly. But more than that, aside from the theoretical aspects of it, I find that for the most part, libertarian candidates are mostly just willing to repeal, like, workers' rights and stuff like that. I mean, like, that's the only thing, because you look at, like, yeah, we'll shrink government, like, what will the people giving us money allow us to do? And you find that, like, oh, well, they'll allow us to bring back child labor. Yeah, and so they eliminate, the child labor laws or whatever in their state, and they say, there we go, getting the government out of your face. But they also turn the rhetoric around to expand government. and stuff like that. Like, for example, in Texas, they recently passed a law that said that local governments could no longer prevent fracking industries from setting up in their towns. You have to get you have to get the state involved if you want to prevent a fracking company from moving in. This was a real clear, just like lobbying move, is the fracking industry came in and they lobbied and they said, hey, make it illegal. And they did, but they used the rhetoric saying that they were shrinking government and instilling individual rights. And it was really weird. Like, the statement that they gave is they were like, we don't want individuals to be controlled by their local governments, so we're making it illegal for the local government to affect fracking, which is kind of the exact opposite of libertarianism. But you get this, is if you vote the Libertarians in, you'll find that they'll probably just use exactly that rhetoric, and they'll just be like, oh, yes, we're shrinking the influence of government in your life by, taking away your rights at the state level or whatever. It's really not... And I mean, it's kind of a pipe dream. In practice, they just won't let it happen, I don't think. That's kind of why people are talking about Bernie Sanders, and he's like, I'm a socialist. And I think that a lot of people believe that just in practice, a socialist government in the States is never going to happen. You'll never get the financial backing to make it with a socialist program, for one thing. We also have cultural issues with it. I mean, like the communist stuff, the Cold War era put us pretty much on a hair trigger against socialism. But I don't know, just weird. Like, it's just kind of, a lot of people don't even think that our governments can function that way. I mean, eliminating worker rights, oh yeah, we can believe that could be done. That could be done in our lifetimes. But raising the tax rates on the rich, God, that is never gonna happen. Justin Cox, have I played any fighting games? And yes, I used to play Tekken all the time. I got really good at Tekken 4 and Tekken 5, and then Tekken 6 came out. I mean, Tekken 5, like, I first started playing Tekken during Tekken 2, because I had friends who played it, but I never owned Tekken 2 myself. I bought Tekken 4, and I got really good at Tekken 4, and I remember being kind of on a cliffhanger with some of the characters. I was like, oh, where are we going with this? What's coming up next? And then Tekken 5 came out, and it was like they just embraced stupidity. Like, it just got to be so childish and just mind-numbingly dumb that by the time Tekken 6 came out, I really didn't care what was going on with the characters anymore. I really wasn't that eager. I was just like, what did they change? And they removed a couple moves, and they added some characters that I thought were really terrible, that I didn't like them. And so that was when I got out of the Tekken series. It's like, well, you've uninvested me from Tekken, and in the emotional sense, and I don't really care about these 3 or 4 extra characters you've added. I'm perfectly happy playing Brian Fury, thank you. Shirtless cyborg punch master. And so, yeah. I played Smash Brothers Melee in college a lot. I really didn't get into Brawl. I was one of those people who was just like, this game has gotten to be way more floaty. I don't like the physics engine. I'm one of the Melee elitists, those people that you hear from. I'm not really like in anyone's face about it, but I just didn't like Brawl very much. I played with Meta Knight in Brawl, which I understand is an overpowered character, that's what I'm told. But honestly, I just always really liked Meta Knight from the Kirby series. Otherwise, I usually played as like Ness or Kirby when I played that game. Captain Falcon, I liked him as well, because he was fast and silly and had like and had a Falcon punch. Yeah. What else was there that I played? I mean, like when I was young, I played Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat I never really got into. But I'm not like real hardcore into the fighting game community or anything like that. I got one from Boris Rebo. He says, in Banana Republic, will I have a buff senator with banana machines? It's not in the plans. I don't think I'm going to do that. I mean, like, for one thing, I think that by the time that I'm answering this question, that's already becoming sort of a dated meme. That was cool when Revengeance was out, and I saw all the jokes about it and everything like that. But no. The senators in Banana Republic will just be regular corrupt. They won't be banana machines. They won't be banana machines corrupt. Raven Van Nucht. Any tips on moving to Europe? Don't try to get into Denmark. Would be one of them. One of the biggest troubles is that the immigration stuff, it's very challenging in the fact that they pretty much want you to have like a high-level education unless you're already a European Union citizen. I would say that marriage is probably one of the easier ways to get in, but it depends on what country you want to do it in. In Denmark, basically, Kenza and I are not going to be able to join each other. Like, I'm not going to be able to go to Denmark to be with her. The law is pretty squarely set against us on that. Not until she's like, I can't remember if it's like she's going to be 26 or 28 or something like that, when the law will just kind of throw up their hands and say like, fine, you know, if you want to get married, we'll accept it now. But it's because the rules are really funny in Denmark. From what we've looked into, they're more lax in certain other areas, but for the most part, they expect you to be able to speak the language fluently, and you've also got to have a reasonable education. I think they used to be more relaxed, but there's been a lot more xenophobia in Europe, just generally speaking, about people moving from the Middle East to Europe. You get a lot of people who just they have the cultural clashes, and they blame cultures for things, but it's kind of like I mean, it's the same historical story. If you look at like when the Irish started to come into the U.S. in droves, and then pretty soon you had the Irish mob and whatnot. It's because they came in and they were all poor immigrants, and they kind of formed together on the basis of ethnicity because that was something they had in common, and they were making no money, so they turned to crime. You're getting some of that in the European countries where you have like a bunch of people coming in from the Middle East, and they sort of band together based on being from the Middle East or having the similar faith or things like that. And you're getting places that are experiencing increased crime. And it's the same deal, and it can pan out. Like, everyone talks about assimilation and all that, but I think that you have to kind of look past the stupidest perspectives and kind of just look at like what are the really normal things that we're seeing. But they're getting more strict about immigration. People are complaining about it. The politics are up and down, but it kind of depends on what country you want to look into. Like I say, Denmark is one of the stricter ones, one of the more impossible ones. But unless you've got a spouse who you can marry and settle down with, I don't have a lot of advice on how to get into Europe. Phila asks, "What's the stuff behind you? Tell us about the stuff." A lot of the stuff I actually don't know what this is. I've got some. This is Kenza's. It's got her name on it. I believe it's like tea. It's herbal tea. She brought this over a while ago. I think the first time she came out to Kansas. I've got a little Kermit the Frog here. This is a gift from Kenza. I've got a little Mrs. Buzzy, sort of. I can't remember who bought this or why they gave this to me, but it's actually a puppet. You can put your hand in it and you can wiggle the legs if you want. I've got a bunch of books, a bunch of Terry Pratchett books, a Linux book. This is my Sony camera box, from this Sony camera that I bought. More books. Papers. I don't know what these are. These have been here for probably like more than a year. Yeah. There's a calculator down here. Good question. Good. Oh, a ruler? Two calculators and a ruler. I haven't used the ruler. I forgot that I had that. If I ever need a ruler, though, that's where I will remember now. I've got that. Yes, I haven't really checked it out in a while. Commissar Elusive, how do you avoid burning out on ponies? I just don't think about it, actually. I kind of just enjoy ponies for what they are. I mean, they release new episodes, and I watch them. And I try not to be too over-analytical with the whole thing. And this is, I think, one thing that kills people, is they start to watch them, and they get really wrapped up, and it's like, but what does it mean? Like, what's the broader message? And stuff like that. And you can do that a little bit, just so long as you do that in fun. I find that the mantra of they are stupid horses really keeps me going with the pony thing. Is every time I see something that doesn't make sense, or when the characters do something stupid or selfish or just like really frustrating, I find it really easy to just justify it in my head by saying, well, they're dumb horses. Of course they would do dumb horse things. This is all in character. It's all perfectly fine. But of course you also have to remember it's a children's show. And I know that some people feel like that's not really an excuse, but honestly, it is an excuse. It's a children's show. So they're not always going to... I mean, sometimes they're just gonna half-ass it. I mean, like, that's how it's gonna be, and that's what I expect, and I just kind of enjoy the colors, and I've gained a newfound appreciation for the work that they do with the animation and the art and everything else as I work on that myself. So, I don't know. For me, you have to think that I'm also kind of like learning how to do my own cartoons and things like that. So there's some technical stuff that I also enjoy about the show, and yeah. So I just don't think about it. I just don't overthink it. I just kind of enjoy it for what it is. And some people are like, well, I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about that, and I just say, I don't know. It all just kind of cracks me up, really. That's how I avoid getting burned out on it. Why do I have the gender swap voices? I've answered this one a few times. The gender swap voices come because when I first started doing the series, I did not have any female voice actresses. I mean, like, I was just kind of doing it on the drop of a hat. So I voiced all the characters, and then after that, they were all voice switched, except for Applejack's brother, Big Mac, who I voiced too soon. I didn't have any female voice actresses helping me out by then, so he got stuck. And Spike, who also got stuck with a male voice because I was the only voice actor. So that's how that happened, and now it is just tradition. From Arthur O'Connor, have I ever played Rifts? And no, I have never played Rifts. I don't have any thoughts on Rifts, I'm afraid. I've never played Rifts. Mutton Leafy, any tips on expanding an audience, like on YouTube and whatnot? And there's not a lot that you can do. There are people who do things called search engine optimization. And what they do is they study how exactly the search engines work so they can figure out how to get you at the top of the search engines. That's the easiest way to get a ton of hits. But the trouble is that all the biggest, most expensive websites have the most research on that sort of thing. And they're naturally favored anyway. I mean, like, there's ways that you can do it. If you figure out how to game the system in a simple way on your own level, though, usually they will quickly make that against the rules because you're not supposed to game the system. People do it, but you're not supposed to. Other than that, you could try advertising platforms, like, for example, Project Wonderful is one that works. It's fairly cheap. You just put in a bid, and if you don't get your bid, then you don't advertise, but on the bright side, you didn't spend any extra money. So you can advertise through Project Wonderful. That's another way to go. Networking is also a good way. Like if you know a guy who also does YouTube stuff, you could do some collaborative stuff with him, and that's a way that you might introduce yourself to his audience, even if you guys are small. It's not great. Some people don't like collaborative work, so I wouldn't do it just for the hell of it, unless you've got like a plan and you think that you guys can mesh well. Yeah, but those are some ways that you can kind of work on things. There's a lot of luck involved, though, as far as stuff goes, because one thing that's weird is if you start to get big, YouTube's algorithm will sometimes just latch onto a video because it's growing, and it'll just show it to everybody, and it'll just explode, you know? And so you can't really predict that, but that's, like I say, that's the search engine optimization stuff that they do. Another thing you could do is you could start off with, like, a little fandom, and go with a little fandom that you like, and you can produce art for this little fandom. And who knows, maybe you'll grow up with it. That's what I did, is I started with a little fandom. But again, that's another one you can't really predict. I just got into My Little Pony because I enjoyed the show, and I started doing it early, and then got to be, you know, well known because I was one of the few artists that were doing the abridged thing early on. And then later on, all the abridged stuff died, and I just kept on fighting through it. So yes, you know, there's not a golden bullet or anything like that, but those are some things that you can do. Jeremy Butler, what things are you proud of, and what might you do differently? And I don't know, this is another thing where I try not to overanalyze my life too much, because truth be told, I mean, life didn't turn out exactly the way that I thought it was going to be, but I'm not unhappy about the way that things turned out. I mean, one thing I might do, if I knew what I knew now, is I probably would learn to draw at an earlier age, so that way I would be better suited to just make my own content right off the bat, and I would not have so much trouble. Same with like learning Flash and other multimedia programs, but I never really predicted that I would get into this sort of thing. I mean, like, I really like to write. I always liked writing, but I never really thought of myself as an artist. I'm still learning how to art. Maybe I won't become a really good artist. But point is, though, I should have started at a younger age, and then who knows, maybe I would be a good artist now. So I'd say that's one of the few things that I really deeply regret. From Wayward Pony. Will I ever do a Dark Souls Let's Play? And I don't know. I've seen it, and it looks like the gameplay is kind of clunky. I don't know how exciting it is to really watch over a long stretch. But I'm not too familiar with the game. Maybe if I play it and I have a really good time, I might think about it. But right now, there's not a lot of time for me to take on another Let's Play. So it would be quite a ways off if I were to do something like that. What is my favorite composer? And I don't know. You asked like classical composers, but I like Squirrel Nut Zippers a lot. I mean, they're a really good band. I really like The Ghost of Stephen Foster. That one's a very fun song. They're sort of like, they do like nihilistic swing, if you can believe that. It's really upbeat nihilism. You know, it's a lot of fun about like death and going to hell and stuff like that. And then, you know, so Squirrel Nut Zippers, lots of fun. Has any of my work come out better than I expected, better than I remember? Like, do I go back and I watch something and say, oh, wow, this was actually not terrible like I remembered? Sure, yeah, that happens all the time. I mean, when I work on projects for a long stretch, I get to the end of it and I think, like, man, this is not really as funny as I hoped it would be. And that, of course, is because I've been sitting there hearing the jokes over and over again for the span of like a month or however long while I work on the thing. And I get to thinking that it's terrible. After I've forgotten all the jokes and I've forgotten all the work that was put in, then it becomes funny again. So yeah, that absolutely happens. It happens to me a lot. It happens to me with a number of things. Some things, of course, I go back on, and I just like say, oh, I should not have done that. I should not have done this. I get upset with the audio quality and the editing quality and everything else. You know, it's not all better than I remember. Some of it's worse. Some of it's worse than I remember. Yeah. Anyway, Sebastian Weinberg, why do I upload to Patreon in chunks? Partly it's because, and actually, this is one of the reasons why I started uploading the Mentally Advanced series early, is because I sort of, like, I have to admit, the money aspect of doing the videos, it's sort of one of the more icky aspects of doing the whole thing. I mean, like, it's a means to an end. I need the money to survive and to get the things that I want in life. But one of the things that I want in life is to make the videos, and so like I do it for the love, as I do it for the money because I need the money, but I also do it for the love of doing it. And so so Patreon I kind of think of as like it's a necessary evil. I mean, like, if I didn't need the money, then I would just do the videos regardless. I mean, if I had infinite free time, if I was just like independently wealthy and was just like living on, I mean, like, if I was just like pulling in so much money in interest alone from the bank or something like that, or from like stock investments, that I could just like do videos and not set up a Patreon, I would do that because I just kind of enjoy the whole thing. And plus too, I mean, like, if I were that wealthy, I really wouldn't. I mean, the point is, I just kind of enjoy this stuff. So Patreon, I don't know. I should probably just be more, just take it as more like a job and just think of it as, like, you know, this is what I do for a living, and this is how I survive. But I kind of upload in chunks because it's sort of like, well, you know, it's time to claim the money, and you know, I don't really want to ask for money. I'll do this. I'll do it. Put it up on Patreon. But yeah, but as far as that goes, that's why I upload in chunks. Because it's sort of, like I say, I view it as more of an icky part of the whole process. But I'll maybe be more consistent about it, and then that way, you know, you'll see it when it goes up on Patreon as well. And like I say, I'll also be uploading the Mentally Advanced series ahead of time, so you guys will see it before everybody, and then we'll do, you know, the stuff, and that way it'll make a little bit more sense. We'll get a little bit more benefit, and yeah. Anyway, though, Michael Efforts, what feedback do you get from female fans? Because I do a lot of female characters. And, you know, truthfully, I don't really hear much from female fans that's any different from what I hear from the male fans. I mean, it's all characterization, really. I mean, he was like particularly curious about Rarity because she's such a horrible character. And the thing is, and I don't know why this has gotten so popular, but when you write a character, that character is not representative of the entire, like, if you write a black guy, he's not representative of the entire population of black guys. Like, when Samuel L. Jackson plays a character, Samuel L. Jackson is not the king of black people. He's not like all black people. Like, otherwise, I mean, like, think of the pressure. Just imagine, like, if you were, like, watching, like, well, gee, I don't know, I don't feel like Samuel L. Jackson adequately represented all black people when he played Mace Windu. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And most people, I don't think, view it that way. I mean, it's not a common viewpoint. It's something that you see a lot from kind of the moral conservatives, you know, who want to limit how you depict people or whatever. But I mean, you just make the characters, and you just have them do things. And Rarity's like a terrible character, and it's really not because of her gender. She's just a she's just a bitch. And that's just how she's written. I mean, like, if you swapped them and you made them men, I mean, you could, the masculine version of that would just basically be like the cat calling jackass or whatever. I mean, there's like masculine and feminine, but you could also just make him also just a really catty male character as well. I mean, theoretically, you wouldn't have to change him at all if you didn't want to. The changes are very subtle. I know I talked about this once before, but really the changes are very, very subtle. There are things to keep in mind when writing female characters versus male characters, but fundamentally, it all just comes down to the character. And so for the most part, what I hear from female fans is just whether or not they like the story or whether or not they like the character, not so much about, I don't know, like, there's not anything really, nothing that I've seen from female fans seems to set them apart from male fans as far as, you know, what they think about my writing. It's, I don't know, you know, what can I say about that? Yeah, so that's all the questions. I have a special thanks if you opted in for this, then you are on the list. Special thanks to those of you who were here in previous months. I know I apologize for being very late with this. I got swept up in some things, and you know, there's never free time, and so I had to just kind of sit down and just do this. But I'll try to be on top of it next month, and we won't skip again. But special thanks to those of you who opted in for this, and special thanks to those of you who didn't opt in, but particularly thank you to Kirk Depew, Jessica Jane, Josh Wayland, Shy Cake, Matthew Lockmouth, Abram Volkov, Pontology, Xcoda, Martin, Alicia Lampkin, Chad Harlson, I wrote very tiny text, Sebastian Weinberg, Justin, Zoe, Shori Knight, Lorenzo Perez, Nathan, Jacob, David Lane, Commissar Elusive, David Malinsky, James David White, Stainless Key, Don Mew, Julian Hanshin, Leland, Ted Svensson, Cosmos Jester, Armand Pillay, Milford Carbuncle, Shady Crafts, Palpatinus, Blue Moon, Chase Falcon, Tristan Morris, Jeremy Butler, Jordan, Ryan Sconard, Adam, Andy Armenio, Jonathan, Anthony Nolan, Severin Mahoney Marsh, Tyler Warren, Miguel A. Mendoza Diaz, TGPT, Uadi, Bringer of Silence, Seraph 27, Waffles, Cameron, Kennedy, Natron, Joseph Carroll, Jeremy J, Morgan Babb, Jesse Kent, Dylan Siddle, Dane, Tuan, Nagoyan, Prince Brushy, Ask Equestria Circus, Raven Van Nocht, Pila Kazard, Justin Cox, Christian Will Martinson, Wireball McCarter, Tobby92, that's Tobby with 3 B's, Charlie Diamond, Zeno Ferrer, Greg Bishop, Arthur O'Connor, Peter 195, Fat 101, James Lee, Crash Collision, Matt, Christian Hay, Solak, Nyax, General Disorder, Mutton Leafy, Amanda, Niles, Phantom 360, Warp 1092, David Silver, Samuel Albert Mell, Michael Efforts, Matthew Grisham, Ryan Green, Austin Nugent, Meat, Augustus Nicholas Chickas, Limey Pony, Sean Mount, Harvey94, Robin Brown, Wayward Pony, Kosho, Blart Flarg, and Connor Walsh. So that'll be it. Thanks for joining me, everybody. You guys have a good day.